Cordell, take 3. And action!
Hi, good afternoon, ma'am. Are you interested in learning about our Savior, Jesus Christ?
Religion, the one topic you're not allowed to talk about. Can you actually make a terrifying movie that's not reliant on jump scares or monsters?
I think that we're being studied.
That was the challenge that we got really excited about.
I thought a very brave project because it's within the genre of horror, or at least psychological thriller, but also has a lot to say or discuss about religion.
The story of Heretic is about 2 Mormon missionaries, Sister Pax and Sister Barnes, whose daily job is to knock on doors and share their religion. On this very day, they end up sharing their faith with a mysterious man, Mr. Reed.
Good afternoon.
Are you interested in learning more about the Church of Jesus Christ?
Come on in.
We can't come inside unless another woman is present.
My wife is home. Does that count?
He has a great interest in religion, and then they start to realize things are not quite as they seem.
What is the one true religion?
The first time I read the script, I felt like I had an existential crisis.
The terror actually comes from philosophical ideas, religious ideas, and going to dark, uncomfortable places with the conversation.
As a person, Mr. Reed has always been capable of being quite charming and magnetic and almost mesmerizing. I always thought he'd probably been a university teacher of some kind, and I imagined he would have had quite a following.
He thinks he's a genius, he thinks he's very smart, and he thinks he's kind. They say the devil greets you with a bouquet of flowers and a smile, not chains and a whip.
Well, I will go and check on the snacks. Make yourselves at home.
Thank you.
That was fun for me to do. When things get terrifying in this film, I wanted Reed to still always just think, it's a fun game. We're having fun. We're having fun. And therefore not to be a cliche, scary guy.
Question, what's your favorite fast food?
Burger King is better than Hardee's, which is better than Checkers, which is better than Wendy's, which is better than In-N-Out, which is better than McDonald's, which is better than Jack in the Box, which is better than nothing.
Jack in the Box serves breakfast all day.
I love breakfast.
Over the course of writing the script, we wanted to be able to put various, religious terms into terms we could understand. It's like, okay, fast food, know a lot about fast food, know too much about Monopoly. Finding these kind of pop cultural references and making them digestible is part of Reed's game.
Have you ever played the Parker Brothers game, Monopoly?
There's jokes everywhere, even as things get creepier and creepier and more appalling. That's always appealed to me. Rather than just doing a comedy or just doing a serious film, I like it when it's all mixed up.
One of the things that we have in the study that is prominently featured is Dante's Inferno, and the idea that there are different layers, and the deeper you go, the worse that it really gets.
You are now in the presence of a living prophet of God.
Heretic really is a degree of a cat and mouse thriller, but it also is very much a horror film about theology and ideas and the idea of religion and the idea of cult.
Can you fit through this?
You're crazy.
Scott and Brian, as writer-directors, they have such an incredible level of detail that they bring to stuff, very specific. They had done so much research, and everything was really well thought out.
They seemed intriguingly weird and ambitious and funny, and I thought I can get on with these two. They're huge cinephiles, and I've always thought that film nerds make very good directors.
They are brilliant, and I trust them so much. And I think that's something that you really hope for, especially when you're putting yourself in these circumstances.
I've wanted you to think about the things that you believe just because somebody asked you to believe them.
Working with Hugh Grant was one of the best experiences of our lives. He goes so deep into character, and he cares so much, and he wants to do great work.
Scary. I'm scared.
The excitement that we had in A24 had with the idea of Hugh weaponizing 35 years of being in romantic comedies, The Notting Hills, The Love Actuallys, The 4 Weddings and a Funeral. And that felt like there was this gentleman, when he opens up the door, that you're familiar with. You're familiar with everything that he's brought to the cinema culture over the last 3 decades. And that was exciting to feel that there was a darker undercurrent that he could activate as well as anyone like Daniel Day-Lewis, and yet he could also be that charming gentleman.
I think it is time.
Time for what?
Time for pie. Pie!
He would do these 10-page dialogue scenes from beginning to end because we wanted that for the performance. There's an arc that's happening that we wanted to feel live.
When we finished wrapping for the day, the crew would actually erupt in applause.
He's very funny. He would improvise a lot. There's this scene when he's explaining Monopoly, and he explains his favorite character, and it's probably my favorite point in the movie.
Yeah.
He goes, meow, and that was not in the script.
Yeah.
There is the pewter avatars. Everyone has their favorite. I shall not tell you mine.
I felt it was very important that he should be fun to be in a room with. I found people in my life who were kind of models. People, for one reason or another, despite being very bright, don't have a lot of friends and compensate by trying to be the funny guy or the prankster.
Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. I call them the Big Three. May I see your Book of Mormon, please?
Chloe has such a spontaneous and open and vulnerable quality, and you really feel her youth. And I think that's extremely important because you really don't know where things will end up with her.
One of the fun things about Chloe is she's going 7 layers deep to extract one little thing that she can use for a character, and all of a sudden you see that pop on screen.
I think something happened tonight that you didn't expect. It feels like you're improvising, trying to convince me of a simulation theory that's not sticking. Am I right?
Working with Sophie was so exciting. She is incredibly thoughtful in a similar way that Hugh is, and she's very understated, which connects so perfectly to who Barnes is.
Is that the game? Say the wrong thing and he stumbles on his words, a candle flame flickers and it captures his attention. What have you been looking for?
I was very lucky because they were brilliantly cast and so completely natural. And it was such a difficult thing they had to do because really within 20 minutes of the beginning of the film, they're starting to get nervous. And they have to go on doing Shades of Fear for the next hour and 20 minutes. And at the same time, to bring with them a sense of backstory and being more complicated than just 2 young missionaries. And I was in awe of what they did. They were amazing.
Doesn't have to be frightening at all. I'll tell you what's frightening. Not knowing is frightening. Where do we come from? What are we doing here? What's our purpose? The terror of those questions is why religions exist. I can answer those questions for you. I can give you a comfort no religion in the world is capable of giving you.
It all makes sense now.
When we went to cast this movie, we would never in a million years think about, should we try to cast somebody who has a relationship to the church? What we wanted was the best actors and the people who could embody these characters. Chloe and Sophie, there was a truth that they were portraying that we recognized as authentically Mormon. We had no idea that they were both individually raised in Mormon families.
We both grew up in the church.
Yeah. When we were shooting, I had friends on missions. So I was actually messaging my friends to make sure everything that we were doing or saying was something that they would do.
This production was all about how can we make this movie as personal as possible. Like that was our touchstone. That was like the thing we kept going back to. Having Sophie and Chloe who have a history with Mormonism, that's personal.
We just need to go home.
I won't keep you if you wish to leave. But I want you to choose which door to go through based on your faith.
What does this have to do with us leaving?
Everything.
The biggest challenge that Brian and I felt was how do we keep this visual? How do we make sure we're communicating the tension of the story from a cinematic perspective? Bringing on our cinematographer, Chung Hoon Chung, felt like we had the golden ticket all of a sudden.
He's mischievous with the camera. Just when you think it's standard, it's not. He suddenly goes whizzing around the floor on a crazy little dolly
We definitely aesthetically wanted the film to have kind of a very controlled visual language. We felt like that mimicked the idea of control and the idea of religion. And yet, we needed the actors to feel that they had total freedom to just perform. One of the techniques that Chung brought to the table was using as much dolly dance floor as possible so that we could have these very specific intentional dolly moves, but the equipment would never get in their way. It's not actors tripping over dolly track, and it's also not a steady cam operator kind of floating around and having the wrong kind of visual feel.
Iterations. Over time, diluting the message, obscuring the original.
With Phil Messina, our production designer, we built this entire house on a soundstage, and so much of the marriage between production design and the camera department was figuring out what walls kind of fly away and being able to have the flexibility to put the camera almost anywhere that we needed to. Phil Messina, as a production designer, for our money, one of the best. We've been enamored by his work with Steven Soderbergh, for instance, for Solaris and Ocean's 11. He's an artist that is not just thinking of his department, he's thinking of how his work impacts everything from the nuts and bolts of the storytelling to the cinematography to even the sound design and what a certain floorboard might sound like if you're stepping on it.
Brian and Scott are amazing. They were so smart in how they wrote the script and how they wanted to approach it and how tight it was. I started thinking of the progression of the spaces in step with the tone. And as they go deeper into the house, the story gets more harrowing. Everything that we put on the screen, probably more than any film I've worked on in recent memory, has to mean something because it's all Mr. Reed's world.
It's like a little kid in his dollhouse. He's
Exactly.
he wants his things where he wants them.
Where he was never able to fully grow up and he wants everything his way.
Yeah.
So I think the house kind of represents that desperate desire to control people.
Yeah.
This was supposed to be made by Mr. Reed, and it's a representation of the house as a puzzle. Here's our living room, the library / chapel. It all had to kind of work as one piece because of the Mobius strip nature of the house. I knew I wanted to play with things that were angular and kind of off, taking architecture from a home chapel or a library, but also thinking about how the geometry is expressed. It almost kind of feels like a spider web. And there are times when you look up at the ceiling, you see all these kind of crazy lines, and it's very graphic in here. And there's times when Mr. Reed's standing between the two doors and the lines of the molding are coming right out of his head.
I sent Phil Messina, the production designer, long lists of things that I thought would be, for instance, in his study, and a lot of them are in his study.
It wasn't a list of these are the things or props I need. It's how about this? And it actually sparked a conversation.
Your religious text is mere ornament, as hollow and as capitalistic as these ridiculous games.
We talked about the 9 levels of hell from Dante's Inferno, and as you sort of get deeper, it starts to break down more and more. And when we get down into the tunnels, they're very organic. There's dirt and rock, and it gets very visceral at that point. All the architecture falls away, all the controlled environments of Mr. Reed. That's deeper into his psyche.
It's a story of perception and deception. It's like the 3 of them are 3 pieces of a puzzle. And they can't look alike, but they have to fit together. One of the things I wanted to do for Chloe East's character was to have her appear to fit into the environment. And although Barnes's character does not, she fits in with Reed's intellect. And he is the glue between the two. And he has all of the colors, and his sweater's like a chessboard. This is the game. This is the puzzle.
That sweater was the subject of intense debate. I just put it on and felt that's him. The color was so utterly depressing, in a good way. And the glasses were massive to me. I asked for 80s frames, because I think the 80s was his heyday.
Do not be afraid. You will witness a miracle.
The hope is that people see it and end up talking about it and asking themselves a lot of questions.
They should be shaken in a the sense that they're shaken by a horror film, but also shaken up intellectually and challenged. It is quite brave in its subject matter.
This movie, it's designed with the audience in mind, where it's both provoking them intellectually and yet hopefully thrilling them with the unknown.
Yeah, we hope it's a roller coaster ride. 1 second you're like feeling kind of awkward and uncomfortable, and then you're laughing out of nowhere, and then you're screaming, and we hope the audience takes that ride.